Nanoboy Namona. That's the phrase I learned from the gentleman sitting on my left side, the Honorable Dadi Toka, who is actually the chairman of Motu Koita Assembly, and also he's the deputy governor of the Port Moresby city. What a pleasure to see you. You put out a wonderful tribal gala for all of us visiting Port Moresby recently to welcome the guests of APEC. Beautiful dances and songs.
I guess we're very lucky or fortunate in that way. We have so many cultural groups. We say we have 800 languages, 1,000 tribes. Yes. So when someone talks about diversity, I think you couldn't go anything further than Papua New Guinea. So we're very, very blessed with that.
The Chinese President Xi Jinping, during his speech at the APEC CEO Forum, was talking about diversity.
Yes.
And he's talking about people, let's get rid of arrogance and prejudice.
That's correct.
Let's try to know the other. Yes. And how they think and how we should learn from one another.
That's correct, yes. I was impressed with the Chinese president. I was fortunate to meet him yesterday as well at an opening of one of the schools that's in my electorate as well. But he's a very humble man. You know, for him to, you know, go all the way into a setting, you know, that's amongst a village and settlements, you know, to open a school, you know, for me, I find that that this person is quite down to earth, and is, you know, he wants to help, and that's what's important. If you genuinely want to help, you know, you're going to have your presence felt in that particular community, and we're very fortunate for that.
The school, what kind of school is that? Okay. How are the kids going to benefit?
Oh, so yesterday was the opening of an academy. It's the first of its kind in Port Moresby. The school will have early learning students, so five-year-olds all the way to grade 12. So you get to stay in that school from early learning, prep, grade 1, grade 2, all the way to finishing high school.
Can I send your kids there?
Well, if there is space, yes. And I think the standard's going to be quite high. I particularly like the fact that you can, we'll be able to have a language curriculum where I think they're going to learn Mandarin.
Wow.
And yesterday there was a group of 7, 8-year-olds who were singing a song in Mandarin, and you know, somehow the only word I came out from that show was whiny.
So that means I love you.
Yes, so
translated into the English.
Yes, so I'm very impressed with them, and I've just come out of an election, so a lot of those kids recognized me, so they were calling my name, so I went and said hello to them, and you know, because they were dressed in traditional gown from your country, and I asked them, are you going to do a performance? And they said, well, we're going to sing a song in Mandarin. And I said, do you know how to speak Mandarin? Said, oh yeah, we know a little bit. And you know, I'm blown away, because here we are with minimum facilities. Our standard, our quality of education is questioned, but this particular academy is about to produce something amazing. You know, I wasn't privileged enough to learn you know, like Mandarin. Like it's like the language that everyone, you know, if my son is sitting there and goes, Dad, which language shall I learn? That's the first language I'm going to choose. You know, I believe that's the future, and that's where it's going. But I was just blown away. These children that live in the village, in a settlement, are now going to have access to you know, such a facility, and hopefully, you know, we're going to groom you know, the next doctors, the next lawyers, the next pilots from this particular institution. So, you know, I'm very, very happy with this.
Certainly, it's a very sweet experience, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And, you know, when we're talking about alleviating poverty, well, we've got to start with education. The more children we educate, you know, the chances of them getting good jobs later on down there.
Particularly during the earlier days.
That's correct, because that's where the foundation is.
That's right.
So yes, I'm looking forward to the next 20+ years and having those stories come out.
It's a beautiful story.
Papua New Guinea is one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world. There are over 800 known languages in the country, of which many belong to uncontacted tribes. Most of the population of more than 8 million live in customary communities, which are as diverse as the languages. While under a constitutional monarchy, the country pursues a parliamentary democracy. How has Papua New Guinea defied expectations and united an ethnically fragmented society into a modern democracy?
You obviously is coming from one of the tribes.
Yes.
One of the many tribes here in this
Yes,
country.
correct.
And yet, the government is also working with the tribe. And
Yes.
yet you and so many of those of your tribe are the landowner of this area.
Yes.
So this seems to be quite a complicated system.
And like a lot of countries, some countries that you go to, there's the indigenous landowners are acknowledged. You go to Australia, it's the Australian Aborigines. You go to New Zealand, it's the New Zealand Maori. So, and the list goes on. So there's many examples. In Port Moresby alone, the original inhabitants, or in this case we could say landowners, are the Motu and Koitabu people. Okay, so that we're the indigenous group that's been here for hundreds and hundreds of years. So in 1884, when from Australia, a ship was sent up to, under the instructions of Queen Victoria, to set up a protectorate, under Her Majesty. They came up and got all our chiefs together, put them in a ship, and said, "Hey guys, we're here to protect you." And then it went on from there. I don't know what arrangements were made, but they decided that the capital city, was going to be here, and hence the city has developed, progressed. But the original inhabitants, or the indigenous landowners, we are still part of the city.
That's
but
wonderful.
The city is growing around us, and this is where I guess it gets complicated. If the leadership or the relevant policies are not in the favor of the indigenous landowners, we will not be benefiting. Okay, hence an event like APEC. I keep on getting asked, how is APEC going to benefit Papua New Guinea? I said, well, as for Papua New Guinea, I can't give you the answer, but for my own people, I can give you the answer right now. I have access to a team from Brunei. Brunei have a similar situation with their own indigenous people who live on water, and that's how my people live. So I'm obviously going to reach out to them and talk about solutions, or how do we live over the water, and maybe getting some assistance of some sort from that particular country and the relevant team that's here. I'm going to reach out to the New Zealand group. How do you deal with your indigenous landowners, with your Maoris?
Right.
And that's the benefit for me. Okay, now on top of that, business opportunities are now going to open up. Okay, once again, I can't speak on behalf of the country, but for my own people, we are part and parcel of the city.
Right.
We're not going to be moved to another area because we live here, we're from here. I was speaking with Anne Sherry, from Carnival Australia, so P&O, the ship we're sitting on, and she's interested in pursuing possible business ventures in tourism services, and that's beneficial for me, because then I can go, well, I want priority or a quota of the employment for my people. And so APEC, in a nutshell, is going to benefit the Motu Koita people.
I understand in the assembly, for example, in which you serve, there are quite some debates, to say the least. For example, where does the money come from? Where does it, who will give the money? And how is it going to be shared when it comes to different necessities of the people?
That's right.
How pollution will be dealt with, for example, on the water. You mentioned people living on the water. Pollution is a big challenge. And also education, health care. All of these strain issues are well-being of the people in your tribe. So how that is being worked out in the assembly, and how is that interacting with the rest of the country and even beyond? Yeah,
so if we look at it from the assembly level, we recently came out from an election. So in the election, there's 16 members, and those 16 members represent a particular electorate. Can be from a village, or with the bigger villages, you get 2 or 3 members. And then the 17th seat in the assembly is the chairman. And that's the seat that I successfully won. So there's 17 of us, and the chairman it becomes the executive arm and the legislative arm, etc. So when we sit in the assembly, we are now discussing policy platforms. You know, my electorate is all of the villages in this area. There's 8 villages, but they have their own electorate members. Right now, the only source of funding that the Motu Koita Assembly receives is from GST. So every business, you know, you go to the shop in Port Moresby and you buy, for example, a biscuit. You know, the GST of that comes to the National Capital Districts, I guess, account for you know for GST in general, and in a year it collects about 200 million. About 6 million of that goes to Motu Koita people to look after certain functions of the villages. And this time around, we're now discussing you know, ways to look at waste management. You know, the walkways over the water. How do we make them you know, durable, so you're not replacing the timber every now and then. So there's numerous priorities, but yeah, I think what's important is to make sure that the particular member from that area is the one that says, these are my priorities, because I want to work with that member.
That's right.
It's very important, and teamwork is all about, you know, I guess all about the future now.
Yes. You have a lot of different tribes and ethnic groups, 800 of them.
Yes.
Just imagine that. So many different languages, more than 800.
Correct.
So how would that work within a national system? That's also a question many outside this country are interested in. Briefly, can you help us to understand?
Well, this is where it gets very, it's challenging. You know, when you have so many tribes, you know, there are some villages in other parts of the country where you and I are sitting here, you and I will speak one language, and just 10 meters that way, they speak another language.
That's right.
And that, it makes it difficult, I guess, in order to try and, I guess, deliver services in a way. Like, I'll give you another example. So in Port Moresby, we are the Indigenous landowners, but because it's Port Moresby and it's the capital city, other Indigenous groups have now settled here. Okay, so now we've got to find a way for all ethnic groups to be able to work together.
Wow, that's complicated.
Okay, and that's what makes it harder for the governor, Powers Parker, and myself, you know, to ensure that this particular group of people that come from that part of the country that are now settled here, you need to make sure that they understand how these people live and that group of people live. So it's complicated, but listen, we make it work.
I don't want to sit in your chair because it's too complicated. However, what is the key to solve all the problems, if there are many problems? Consultation.
You know, I believe in mediation and consultation. From where I'm sitting, you know, yes, our people haven't had so much access to a lot of information, but if you sit with them and talk to them and explain things, you know, that there are better chances of coming to some sort of, you know, resolution.
Yes.
That's a win-win for both parties, and that's very important.
Beautiful. The culture itself. Of course, we are in a modern society. Your society is changing so fast. With APEC coming over, of course, it's even faster.
Yes.
That you see the change, the partners that you can seek all over the world. But the question is, how would you preserve the culture, make sure it's not just part of tourism, but rather the real part of life?
Well, that's a fantastic question, and this is why the Motu Koita people have their own assembly.
Tell me about that.
Okay, we have our own assembly because we are under threat of the fact that we're in the city, and as I mentioned before, different ethnic groups are amongst us. So we are a threat to losing our own identity, because if there's intermarriages, we will stop talking our language. You know how you introduce.
And you cannot stop intermarriages either.
Exactly, but we've got to find a way of preserving that. We own a radio station that speaks in the language, so it's fantastic. But I'm looking at other ways, maybe in the curriculum itself. We spoke about languages. You know, Mandarin's going to be introduced at Butuka. Maybe we need to put in Motu and Koitabu. those two languages. So and that's how we maintain it. During the year have events that celebrate our history, our culture. Numerous ways to do it, and the beauty of it is, and this is what APEC provides, it gives me the network to, how do you do it in your country here? Brunei, how do you do it in your country, New Zealand, and in China?
But at the same time, becoming more confident also about your own culture. See the people who are surrounding the tribal gala, as I said, and the fascination people had about your culture.
It was amazing. I was blown away, and I was very impressed with the organizing of it. It's the first time I've seen it laid out like that. Usually you have one cultural group perform, they move on, next one comes. Last night you got to, it was like a smorgasbord. It's like a buffet.
One of them,
you walk out and go, oh, which one do I go to? And it wasn't a matter of let's sit and wait till they perform.
I'm struggling with priorities. Let me just put it that way.
Exactly, yes.
Having said that, though, there's another very important issue here. That is, on the one hand, you preserve the culture, you make sure the society progresses to the modern society.
Correct.
But on the other hand, you do see apparently some complicated geopolitics going on.
Correct, yes.
For example, you've seen the speeches given by the leaders of different economies of the APEC community, and sometimes they are not really seeing eye to eye with one another on some issue. So to you, coming from PNG, particularly from the tribal culture, how do you see what's going on around you?
Well, put it this way, the speakers today, they're leaders of their respective countries. They're going to talk about topics in general, and it's for the, I guess, the bigger landscape. But for the average Papua New Guinean, we just want to see services being there. We want to make sure that this particular hospital has the relevant medical services with the medication in it. This particular school has classrooms, it has teachers. That's our main concern. I'm not concerned about setting up a naval base between the US and Australia and things. I'm concerned about what's happening on ground zero. Okay, and China, the Chinese government helping Butuka set up that school. I mean, that's fantastic. Now, my next approach is to talk to the relevant authorities. Now, okay, how do we set up another school? With the help of the Chinese government again. That's how I want to operate, because I want to make sure that these facilities. We're going to get all sorts of comments about quality and things like that. At the end of the day, it's whoever is going to come out and stand with us and work with us. You've got to make sure that they're genuine. I'm not into the politics of making grand statements, and then 10 years later nothing's happened.
Did you experience some of those?
For Papua New Guinea, we're working on. We're so far behind. There's a lot to catch up on. Whether it be in the education sphere, the theme at the moment is on technology. We have some of the most expensive internet rates in the world, but if not the most expensive. Once we open up these doors, it's just going to leapfrog. It's going to change the dynamics of how we do business, how children are educated, our health systems. Everything will change, and that's what I'm most concerned about. If the country, if any APEC economy can go, hey, we're going to help you do this, and this is the timeline, we're going to help next year, this is going to happen. Like I said, wonderful speeches, but at the end of the day, I want to see delivery. I want to deliver as well, because I'm going to sit amongst the relevant people, and how are we going to work together so what I promised to my people, to my constituents, is delivered. And as I said, it's just ground zero. What can we do on ground zero? Because that's all that matters. Yes,
thank you so much. Dadi Toka, Chairman of Motu Koita Assembly. What a pleasure seeing you. All the best to you, your family, and your tribe. Thank you.